FM 92.7. It is live from our studio here at Adesawe Kanda in Accra, and also live around the world on 3news.com. Coming up this evening, majority of Ghanaians continue to approve President John Dramani Mahama's performance in office, although there has been a marginal decline in the approval rating from 66 in 2025 to 58.9 in May of 2026. We have details of that breakdown of the IEA's national survey, which was conducted a month ago, for you in a moment. And also coming up, there was near scuffle at a military hospital in the Ashanti region, where the minority nearly clashed with the military detachment to the hospital, who were asking the grounds on which the minority team wanted to come and undertake their survey of the hospital. We'll give you details of that as well. We are live around the world on 3news.com. Be a part of the show. Let's hear what you make of the stories that we're bringing you this evening. We have business and sports at the tail end of the 1 hour bulletin. My name is Martin Asiedu-Dartey. Let's bring you the news summaries of other big stories making rounds in Ghana with Safwa Boahene. Hello, Safwa.
Hi, Martin. Thank you, and welcome to the news summary segment. So, first story, and the Minister for Roads and Highways, Kwame Asiedu-Dartey, has disclosed that the Chief Director of the Ministry has submitted a request for the recruitment of approximately 1,000 additional personnel to strengthen operations across its agencies and addressing growing staffing shortages in the road sector. Mr. Asiedu-Dartey made the revelation when he appeared before Parliament Select Committee on Economy and Development on Wednesday, June 10, where he outlined challenges affecting the effective supervision and delivery of road infrastructure projects nationwide. So, a second story, and the High Court in Sekondi has issued an interim injunction restraining the New Patriotic Party (NPP) and some of its regional and constituency executives from proceeding with activities related to the Takwa Nsuyayim constituency electoral area elections. The order, granted on June 9, 2026, followed an ex parte application filed by 5 party members: Andrew Adade, Daniel Kweku, Francis Kwache Amprofi, and then Dominic Boache Echampong and Michael Ahin. Away from that, the Public Relations Officer of the Echimampunya District Education Directorate, Eric Abuaje, has provided clarification on an incident involving a teacher and a female student of Nyinahen Catholic Senior High School in the Ashanti region. Mr. Abuaje said the incident occurred on Monday evening at a private hostel housing students of the school. He explained that 3 male students had reportedly left the hostel after gate closing hours and returned around 10 p.m. despite the gates being scheduled to close at 9 p.m. Away from that, also Vice President Prof. Jane Nana Opukwajiman has officially launched Ghana's revised national cultural policy. The launch was held on June 8, 2026 at the National Theatre in Accra. And to our last story now, Premier League and Ghana international forward Antoine Semenyo has been appointed global brand ambassador for Ahmad Tea, I beg your pardon. The British tea company announced on Wednesday, June 10, and the partnership comes ahead of the 2026 FIFA World Cup, where Semenyo is expected to play a key role for the Black Stars. And this brings us to the end of our news summary segment. And over to you, Martin.
Thank you very much for the summaries. We are settling for the details of our stories now, and you can be a part of the show. Let's hear from you on what you make of the subjects that we are going to be treating this evening on Hot Edition on 92.73 FM. We are starting from the issues of a new survey that was conducted by the Institute of Economic Affairs, the IEA. And it goes on to say that President John Dramani Mahama continues to enjoy the support of most Ghanaians, although his approval ratings fell slightly by more than 9% points in 5 months, according to a nationwide survey released by the Institute of Economic Affairs on Wednesday, the 10th of June 2026. The poll, conducted in May 2026 across all 16 regions with more than 1,000 respondents, placed the president's job approval rating at 58.9%. This compares with 68% recorded in an earlier IEA survey conducted in December 2024, and I beg your pardon, which was conducted in December 2025 and published in February 2026, representing a decline of 9.1% over the period. The IEA said that the decline suggests that while many Ghanaians remain supportive of the president, they increasingly expect improvement in the economy to be reflected in their daily lives. Why Ghanaians approve the president? And according to the report, among many of the respondents, the president's performance on the economy was the most frequently cited reason. About 73.5% pointed to the government's handling of the economy, while 16% mentioned road infrastructure. Energy and electricity accounted for 2.7% of responses from those who gave their express approval in terms of the rating of the president. Again, want to find out what exactly were the concerns of those who disapproved the president, and they had issues with what they said the economic issues that the president managed. So economic concerns predominantly among respondents who disapproved of the president's performance. About 30.9%, so estimatedly 31% of the respondents cited the economy as their main reason why they thought that the president was not performing as expected. And so in a moment, we'll try and get some further breakdown of perspectives on the approval ratings or the ratings that have been conducted by the IEA. Joining us on the phone lines now is Kojo Opon Nkrumah, Member of Parliament for the Ofuansia-Iribi constituency. Honorable, a very good evening to you. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Martin. Good evening to your listeners.
Great. To start with, 58%, it's, according to IEA, that's a decline of about 9.1 percentage points from the earlier one that was conducted in 2025. From the position of, someone who is on an economic committee of Parliament, what do you make of these new rating figures?
The information that I've seen suggests that between December 2025 and May 2026, the approval ratings of the president have dropped by about 9.1%. And I think if this information is correct, to lose about 9.1% in about a 5-month period is very, very significant. And I would interpret that to mean that it is because gradually people are seeing that some of the major things that they had hoped or they believed that the Mahama II administration will be able to live up to, they've been scammed about it. And it is this realization that is translating into such a rapid decline within a 5-month period.
Well, so that you describe it as a scam, and people are beginning to see through this current administration. But those that gave the high approval ratings of the president also mentioned his ability, or the government's ability, to manage the economy well. Is that a position you would agree with, that comparatively between the period of the survey, the economy has been quite stable and is making progress?
In the same report, you will see that the report says that those who disagree and those who think that they should drop from approving into disapproval, they also say it's because of the economy. I'm sure you've seen that.
Yes.
What it means is that the jury is split, the jury is out there on the economy. Remember, we have insisted that the initial seeming stability that you saw in the economy was being heavily induced by either pumping in forex to shore up the currency when our actual earnings were not at that level, or by heavily sterilizing to bring inflation down when the cost of production has not come down. And that over time, it was going to show in terms of huge losses and debts, which the same Ghanaian who hasn't got a job yet will have to come and pay. And as time has gone on, very unfortunately, we have been proven right. The Bank of Ghana is now sitting with a 34.9 billion CD loss That is a 15.6 plus the 19 billion. And that is even after they had to sell half of our gold reserves to create an artificial revenue of 9.6. Else, that loss would have been about 44 billion. And that takes negative net equity of the central bank to about 96 billion, which the Ghanaian who is unemployed, the Ghanaian who is still struggling, the Ghanaian whose electricity bill and water bill and rent is gone up, he's now coming to pay that 96 billion. It is because the government now wants to avoid that. That's why they tried that kite that the Bank of Ghana should sell the head office building to pay instead of Ghanaians paying. But that you have heard the Bank of Ghana say they are not considering it, they won't do it. The government has to pay for it because it was based on the government instructions that they did that heavy inducement to make the figures look good in the beginning. And it is the fact that people are beginning to realize it. That's why about 9.1% is dropping on the approval level, also partly because of the economy. What it means that there are those who are yet to see through the economic, gymnastics that they are doing. When those people see through it, you see where their numbers will go as well.
Right. So on a broader scale, I mean, both those who are approving, giving thumbs up to the government, and those who are disapproving of their performance touched largely on the economy. In your estimation, which areas would you advise government improves upon, or which areas have they really faltered and can, do better in terms of getting them the right markings as well?
As I mentioned earlier, today if you ask those who still approve of the government's management of the economy, they will tell you stability. Stability means for them about three major things. One, currency stability. Two, a drop in headline inflation. And three, maybe what they want to add to it is that they are publishing some growth numbers that look like the economy is growing. But we have insisted that, as I mentioned, the currency appreciation, the 40% currency appreciation that you saw in 2025 was because the government pumped a lot of forex onto the market from our reserves. Remember when we said that that's what they were doing? They said we were lying. In the end, they had to admit, because the IMF forced them to admit that they pumped about $10 billion, and the way they were generating and pumping the dollars led to a loss of about 9.6 billion cedis at the central bank, which I've said you are coming to pay for it. So on the currency side, they haven't gotten a substantive solution. They are just buying Galamsey gold, selling it at a premium. In fact, they are buying it at a premium and selling it at a discount. That's why they are making losses. And they are pumping the forex onto the market as though the Ghanaian economy is naturally earning a lot more forex than it is. But that's not true. We all know that. Second is on inflation. They want to bring headline inflation down. So what they've been doing is that they've sterilized money from the system. We told you they were doing this. As at the time we told you, they had sterilized about 60 billion. They called us liars and all sorts of names. By the end of the year, they themselves admitted that they had sterilized 93 billion and had paid 15.6 billion to the banks for the sterilization. In other words, the banks, instead of giving money to the private sector to grow the economy, went to give the money to the Bank of Ghana and collected interest of 15.6 billion. Is that sustainable? The Bank of Ghana has now told you that they're not going to do that again. So last month, the Bank of Ghana reversed the dynamic cash ratio, which will allow them to mobilize money without paying for it, which they were not listening to when we're talking about. They've now reversed it just last month. So they say they're not going to do this thing again. So you ask yourself, is that sustainable? If you look at growth or meaningful growth is growth that comes with jobs. Where are the jobs? They came up with the 24-hour economy. They said they were collapsing the 1D, 1F and replacing it with the 24-hour economy. That will ensure that one job, three shifts, three people. I don't know if you can point to one person in this republic who is working within the 24-hour economy framework. In fact, the 24-hour economy authority itself that they established, that authority doesn't even work 24 hours. The people there don't do 133, but they are promising people that they are coming to create 133. Right. So you ask yourself again whether it is translating into any jobs or is sustainable. So our argument has been this. If you manage an economy with a lot of settings and PR, of course, you achieve some initial numbers. And people will say, 68% of the people will say, by December, they will say they approve. As it goes on and people begin to see through the scam, in 4 months, 9.1% of those people will say, no, they don't approve anymore. And we are saying to you in all humility that if they go along with this thing that they are doing, as the months go on, more people will begin to see through it that this is a scam, that this 24-hour economy thing is a lie, it's a hoax, it's not going to happen. I'm not going to get a job under it. So they deceived me for my vote, and in the end, I mean, look at floods. In 2019, they said floods were because Akufo-Addo was not serious and that they would do a better job. Look at the flooding problem now. Is it better or is it worse? Galamsey, they said you could solve it in 5 days or 1 week or something like that. Some judge was all over the place shouting, won't let anybody go to bed. We gave them power. Look at it, almost 1.5 years. Galamsey is worse. It's now institutionalized. They are buying it with state money.
Right. So, sorry for cutting in here. Maybe in wrapping up the conversation, I've just deduced a number of words from your submission. You know, the economy is unsustainable, its settings, its PR.
No, I've not said the economy is unsustainable. I've said that the methods they are using.
The method, right. Yes. So clearly, it means that in a number of probably months or probably less than even a year, the birds will come home to roost. At what point are you envisaging that all of these settings and PR, as you put it, would clearly collapse right before our very eyes? So we'll see what they are, we'll see what it is that they've been doing all this while.
Oh, it started already. Asiedu-Dartey is going around the country and explaining to people why they can't deliver on those promises. And it's now begging them that they should keep faith with them. The Greek minister says the finance minister is lying and is publishing fake figures. These are not my concoctions. These are facts that are happening before you. You are hearing NDC foot soldiers and supporters coming up and complaining about how they feel that they've been deceived because the things that were promised them are not happening. Sedinam Tamaklo has come into the country and all of a sudden they are filing medical and other things so that she won't serve her sentence. So those who believe that there was some oral coming, that somebody has stolen money, they are seeing it after all these knowledge prosecutions have been filed and all the people before court have been let loose. It's becoming clear that all of this was a scam. So I don't have to give you a timeline. As the days go by, the people of Ghana will begin to see through the scam that was perpetrated on them.
And of all that, the alternative is the New Patriotic Party.
You will notice that we have started reconstituting our policy agenda. There were things we did in government that worked very well. There were things we worked on in government that didn't also work well. We have been humble and honest enough to admit it. We haven't deceived the people. We have said we are going back to the drawing board. Dr. Bawumia has set up the policy teams. The teams have started working. I chair the policy coordination committee. Very amazing work coming in from all over the country, people with lots of ideas and lessons of things we did wrong that we can improve. And we are very optimistic that as we start putting out our alternative propositions, Ghanaians will see that we remain the most robust force to help this country move forward. Look at cocoa. We were paying 3-1. We took it from about 400 to 3-1. They said at 3-1, we had robbed the farmers and that they'll pay 6,000. They came and they've reduced it to 2.5. The cocoa farmers now know that they've been scammed. And now Dr. Bawumia is working on a solution to ensure that the Ghanaian cocoa farmer will be protected on the watch of the next MPP government.
Honorable Kojo Pongroma, thank you so much for your time.
Best wishes, sir.
And he is the Member of Parliament for the Ofuasia-Iribi constituency, also a member of the Economic Committee in Ghana's Parliament, having a bite on the IEA survey that has clearly given indications that the current administration under John Dramani Mahama, their approval ratings are still above the 50s, almost 60%. However, there has been a decline of about 9.1%. And you just had Kojo Pongroma tear into the government and say that almost everything they've been doing, the methodology they've been trying to put all of the country's economy on the right footing, etc., is PR. It is settings, as they've always said, and is unsustainable. Let's speak to a policy analyst and a policy think tank, Imani Africa, and the president has joined us in the person of Mr. Franklin Kujo. I was about to say Honorable Franklin Kujo, but Mr. Kujo, good evening. Thank you for joining us on 3FM.
That title is an endangered species in this part of our world. I would not like to be used. Anyway, good evening, my brother.
Right. What is your initial assessment of the approval ratings that have been given after a survey by the IEA? They say 58 58.1%, I should say that the president is still doing well. In fact, 58.9%. So you can round it off to say 59% say the president or the government is doing well. However, a sizable number also feel otherwise.
Is it the government or the president? I don't know which one. Frankly, I've not read the report.
The president. So
I'm only listening to you. So I don't know the people they interviewed. I don't know the categories of people they interviewed, the age group bracket. All of that needs to be told. But look, in any case, a poll is a poll. And the IEA is one of the most respected think tanks in this country. Actually, the oldest, I think. And so I would not think that they will make any significant faults at all. I'm sure they know their marbles. Whatever it is an indicator. I mean, all polls are indicators. We have moved away from doing polls because we do more sophisticated stuff. But we want to have conversations about the economy, So polls are, everybody's doing polls these days. So it's become less spectacular. So most of the chairs are polls almost on a daily basis. So for me, polls really have not, I don't know how to put it. But anyway, look, they've done their work. They've given their report. I'm sure the presidency will take it in good faith, or the government has to take it in good faith, and then move on. Every report is valid. No matter how well or it's not well done, it is really, really valid. We have decided to move into the AI space. We do large language models, and we create a lot of views through social media. But anyway, that's also our approach. But I think, look, as I said, every government must be listening to organizations that churn out reports, opinions, and it's very useful. So I don't have anything to say that look, as a government, you have to have your ears on the ground. So if someone says they did a poll 6 months ago, or how many months ago, and now they are telling you that you've dropped by 9 percentage points, that's significant, and you need to do some serious work around it.
Right. Let me just help you with some numbers, and then maybe I'll ask my next question. So they say that they conducted the poll in May 2026 among 1,000 respondents, and out of the 1,000, it was across all the 16 regions, so it gives it a regional balance. And 58.9% gave the president a high approval. So it's the president, not necessarily the government, it's the president.
Okay.
And then out of that, 28.4% disapproved, and then 12.8% expressed no opinion. So those are the broad-based figures that they worked with. But the larger part, according to the report, indicate that almost all the key respondents, those for and against, all talked about the economy. So 73% of the respondents cited the economy as the main reason, while 16% cited road infrastructure development, and then energy and electricity took some 2.7%.
Right.
That's the breakdown.
Right. Well, I mean, this is interesting to hear. 73% of the economy. That tells you that the economy really, if you look at the figures, we just saw the latest, the quarter one figures, I think 6.4%, higher than 6.2% in 2025, higher than 4.9% in 2024, right? So increasingly, the economy is accelerating. It seems to be doing well. I mean, if people go out and borrow money at rates, I'm hearing is 16, 17%. Unlike before, it was about 35-40%. And our friends who left the power not long ago, inflation hovered at some point 52 or 50-something% until it came to about 23%. Now, inflation is low, right? Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you look at the growth and the debt. Junk created not long ago. Now things are going. So I can understand Ghanaians appreciate the fact that the economy is being managed by not even 60 ministers. You realize somebody had a 90. I've forgotten the number, and then they delivered a junk-rated economy. So I suspect that I think that the NDC government needs to focus on the economy, and it's important because the economy really, once you fix that, then everything else falls in place. Of course. Road infrastructure, I'm not surprised that people have said that the roads are problematic, especially in this when it's raining as well.
Right.
But I'm sure by the time they are doing their big push and whatever, maybe next year talk to the same people. You never know. Probably people say, okay, well things are going well, and they need to deal with the flooding because all these things have a consequence on the on people's livelihood. So I suspect that, and of course, energy issues. People are paying to. I think it's a bit expensive to pay for power these days.
Yeah.
But generally, things have been relatively calm. And I think governance is not just about talking big on economy. People talk big, but they didn't deliver nothing. So it's important that while you also need to make people feel a bit confident. And I'm happy that 73% actually suggest in that court. So it'll be interesting to look at how they lump all those figures together, and then it dropped by that percentage.
Right.
It will be good to look at the previous report and then do the analysis properly. But anyway, I haven't seen both, and so I can only rely on what you're saying. Whatever it is an indicator that, hey, get up your loins and do the work.
Right.
Make sure your legacy is important. I think it's a fair report.
Yes. Mr. Kujo, thank you so much for making time to speak to us.
Pleasure.
And that is Franklin Kujo, President Imani Africa. You heard his thoughts on the IEA report that has surveyed about 1,000 Ghanaians, and out of that number, about 58.9%, let's round it up to just say 60%. About 60% of the respondents say that the president is performing well, while 28% say they disapprove of his performance. And a sizable chunk of about 12.8%, let's say 13%, say that they have no opinion. So if you add, and that is if you are doing critical analysis, if you add that 13% or the 12.8% to those who approve the president, that's quite substantial in terms of the quantum of citizens who approve of the president and his management of the economy. However, if you add that same number to those who disapprove, it still falls short or less than half of the percentage of the respondents. So it tells you that that's still a sizable number and means that a lot more work needs to be done to be able to increase the tally of those who give full approval to the president's management or the government management of the economy. Let's stay on the subject matter and now speak to those that conducted this survey. Julius Jima is the Executive Director, Center for Economic and Financial Analysis. Mr. Jima, good evening. Thank you for joining us on 3FM.
Good evening, Martin. Thank you for having me. Right.
Let's look at it statistically or from the purely survey point of view, no politics, this time around.
Right.
If out of 1,000 Ghanaians, you have 58% say that they approve of the president, and you compare it to a few months ago when a similar survey was done, and you had 68. Now we have 58. Would you say that we have done well, or the government is doing well, or they are, because there is a decline, it means that it's a downward spiral?
Okay. Good evening to your cherished listeners. Once again, thank you for the opportunity. I believe that we can only put the raw data and the hard facts to bear for such a critical discussion. And the decline, for just the literal interpretation of data, if you look at the figures, I mean, moving from 60 to somewhere 58, we could just say that there might be some, sentiment, or people will be thinking that, the economy is not doing it just because of the decline. But if you look at the whole percentage in its entirety, still there could be some, optimism in the performance of the economy, which the report is trying to address or trying to tell Ghanaians that overall the president has done well in the last 1.5 years, because that is where the research or this particular survey is really looking at. We are aware that from, when the economy went into its deepest regret or its deepest overheating in the year 2023-2024, we realized that the economy became one of the heated arguments and one of the major concerns for Ghanaians, with the likes where indicators were pointing in all, very negative directions. So it stands to reason that any person, even if it wasn't President Mahama, anybody would have just taken over the country is definitely going to look at the economy. And President Mahama has just done rightly so. So you realize that in his first year, and if you look at the poster and the strategy of the finance minister, clearly we could just make the deduction that all the effort is pointing to the fact that we need to strengthen our economic performances. We need to strengthen the indicators, because it was one of the major concerns of Ghanaians. Because we realized that in the period of somewhere, let's say by end of year 2023, inflation was just skyrocketing. That's where we saw the major overheating of the economy. So clearly, if it was even Martin, which you are taking over the country, that was going to be your first major concern. So tracking the performances from 2024, ending 2024 to ending 2025, which is the first year assessment of President Mahama economic performance, what is the data telling us? Clearly, when it comes to economic policy, we are looking at the macroeconomic indicators and then the fiscal performances. The fiscal points to government revenue, government expenditure. So in the first year, what the revenue figures are, and then, the expenditures figures are. We know that we have a Fiscal Responsibility Act, so government should not be able to overspend. Overspending, increasing expenditure, and then budget deficit is one of the structural problems that we have had as a country, putting our figures in the negatives or putting our numbers not doing well. So when we look at the outcomes, one of the key indicators we are looking at is the primary balance. Now, the primary balance measures government, that is the revenue minus expenditure, minus interest. Interest is the borrowed item when we decide to go and borrow money. But if you look at your core operations, government core operations, then that measures primary balances. And it can be measured in both ways, whether you are doing on commitment or on cash basis. Now, the government really, was strategic about making sure that they will not overspend, meaning that they recorded a positive primary balance of 3% of GDP. The target year on is where the emphasis are, which government did better. If you look at inflation, government peaked inflation from January 2025 at a rate of 23.8%. As at the end of 2025, government is doing somewhere 5.7%. And it is brought down further into at the end of April, somewhere 3.4%. Mm-hmm. If you look at the performances of the cedi at the time was depreciating, in fact, some about 40%. As at last year, the depreciation was reduced to about 19.2%. And then one of the areas that government gets money, that is borrow money from the general public, is the capital market. So we are looking at the performances of the Treasury bill. And in the Treasury bill, remember that because of the debt restriction exercises, government is able to reduce the rate. So now government borrows money, the return on the capital to investors or individuals and businesses is lower. So it gives predictability. Government can really pay its debt, unlike what we witnessed before. So these are the balances when it comes to the fiscal. Now, let's go to the key ones, which is the macroeconomic performances. One of the key things we really look at in terms of the measurement of the economy is the growth rate. So the real GDP growth rate. Government did about 6.1%. In the first 3 quarters of 2025, government already even exceeded the target for the year, which was about 4.8%. All the targets that the IMF, the World Bank predicted for the country in the first year, government have exceeded. If we take the oil out of the entire measurement of the GDP basket, government also did better, which is about 7.5%. Now, the driver of the growth, as we all know, is the services and then supported by agriculture. I've already talked about inflation. We talked about the interest rate as well. Now, one of the key indicators is credit to the private sector. And that is very important because we do say that we need a lot of public-private partnership. We need to support the private sector as the engine of growth. The report suggests that government, in terms of credits, government did about 17.1 billion to the private sector. Means that more private sector is now getting money, is able to borrow money and then plow it back into their businesses.
Right. So from where you said and the analysis you've given us, at least there is progress, but there's still more room for improvement.
Yes, there is more room for improvement in areas like our structural economy. We still have some challenges in the economy. So looking at these performances, I believe the president have already said that we need to first look at sustainability and then second, we look at transformation. Right. Some of the areas, I believe, let me put it out there for some recommendation.
And briefly for me in 30 seconds, please.
All right, so we will have to still relook at our economic structure. We've talked about, still exporting raw commodities. It's high time from the sustainability. We need to make sure that we are doing more value addition. The Minister of Finance have, put out some strategies when it comes to the gold and cocoa, trying to, add value, and process more of our cocoa beans in the country. We could be able to tap more money from the international market. We still have to look at our energy, that is our power sector, so that all the successes we've recorded, the issues with energy, industries will have to go down and all be recording the necessary growth rate. So once we tackle at least one of these two, the other, but because of time, looking at diversification of our economy and then the energy sector vulnerabilities. Once we're able to do that, we'll be able to transform the economy, and the government will realize its intended big, policies and programs that they have to offer to the country.
Mr. Jima, thank you so much for making time to speak with us.
Thank you so much.
Julius Jima, Executive Director, Center for Economic and Financial Analysis, also taking a bite on the IEA survey that was released earlier today. It was conducted in May, just about a month ago. And clearly, from all indications, majority of the respondents, which represent majority of Ghanaians, 58.9%, say that the economy or the government, or the president for that matter, is doing well. However, 28% say that there's still more room for improvement, and they hope that the government will pick lessons from the survey and the respondents therein to make better decisions in driving the economy to an expected end. This is Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. You're listening to us live from our studio here at dissent Kanda in Accra. Let's now go to some other stories. This time around, we're going to the House of Parliament. And what's been happening in the House of Parliament, we'll update you briefly on it. The minority leader has been addressing the media. Also, earlier today in the Ashanti region at the Afari Military Hospital, there was a near scuffle between Dr. Asiedu-Dartey, who is the minority ranking on the Health Committee of Parliament. He had a confrontation with a military deployment that were at the hospital. What exactly transpired? We'll update you on that in a moment. Stay with us.
The Electoral Commission has reiterated its commitment to organizing free and fair elections this December.
How's your week treating you? I'm here to serve you great music tidbit for your at-work listening pleasure.
Rastafari, Rastafari, Rastafari. Our Father, who art in Zion, Kanamawe, Kanamawe, Kanamawe. Oh, turn it up!
Come into the mountains. Sight and I grandfather.
It's time to drive you home in style with great music, the 411 and all your favorite songs, what's happening around town, and so much more.
And in the headlines today, the two leading political parties have been addressing the public on allegations of corruption. The Black Stars coach has unveiled his squad for the upcoming games, and there are some interesting names.
Pull up! The weekend is here and it's time to turn up. Get your dancing shoes on, Lego.
We really do have it all. It's a premium mix of information and entertainment every single day on 3FM 92.7, your urban lifestyle radio.
Other stories specifically to the Ashanti region, and there was a brief standoff which occurred at the Afari Military Hospital in the Ashanti region on Wednesday afternoon after military personnel reportedly prevented the minority caucus in Parliament led by the ranking member on health, Dr. Asiedu-Dartey, from accessing the Afari Military Hospital. The soldiers had access to certain parts of the building required prior authorization and therefore refused the military, or I beg your pardon, they refused the minority entrance when the minority could not provide any evidence of why they were there and who exactly they were. So here are excerpts of what exactly happened moments before we got the news that it looks as though the military or the soldier, it was actually one soldier in question who was preventing the minority caucus from, touring the facility, which has come into the limelight following what happened at the Konfanochi Teaching Hospital.
Officer, why is he doing this? Yeah, for you. No, so there is no question. Go back. When there's an emergency, do you ask permission? No. When there's an emergency, when there's an emergency, do you ask permission?
Well, so you just had a brief idea of the confrontation, verbal exchanges over there when the soldier said that he was doing his job and his job was to make sure that whoever comes in there has some level of clearance before they can be allowed to tour the hospital for whatever reason. Now, the minority subsequently accused the government of prioritizing the 24-hour market project over some major health facility projects which are currently stalled in parts of the Ashanti region. Here is Dr. Asiedu-Dartey, who is the minority ranking on the health committee.
This particular project was initiated by your administration. That was when the former president, John Adjei-Kunkufo, was leaving office in 2008. You could not commence the project. You had opportunity, 8-year opportunity, to at least finish this particular project. You could not finish this project. One will ask, what moral right do you have to criticize the current administration who commenced this particular project, erected some structures before leaving office, when you failed to complete it?
Yeah, the historical, we put things into the historical perspective. The project was conceived by President Kufuor. And then when the NDC came to power, they wanted to carry it from this region, out of this region. It went up north, it went to Greater Accra, then eventually came to Ashanti Region. That was about 5 years delay. So historically, it's the concept of the project of the MPP, part of the NMS, the Eurojet projects. So the NDC started it. And then when we came, it was embroiled with contractual disputes. So, contractual dispute is about interest. You negotiate. That was protracted. Still, the contractor was working, because some payments were going until this debt management situation. Then they will have to disagree on what to be paid him and what he wanted. So it was protracted by disagreement, not because of the unwillingness of the government to complete it.
Can something be done about this? You setting up as your own projects, we agree. But politicization of healthcare makes no sense. You understand? You want to set up 24-hour economy markets, about 261 of them. And you said that one is not ambitious. That one you are doing it. And somebody is setting up Agenda 111, you said that is ambitious.
Right, so you had clearly the minority ranking on the health committee, Dr. Asiedu-Dartey, who also gave a brief historical background indicating that yes, the project was raised up to a certain level by the NDC government, and 8 years on, very little to nothing was done under the NPP government. And now that the NDC is back in power, it looks as though the NPP wants to put pressure on the current government to complete it. But the question many are asking is, how is it that you didn't do anything, but you want to have the moral authority to question why the one who started it has not completed it? Well, let's go to the phone lines and then speak to the chairman of the Parliament's Health Committee and Member of Parliament for Nabdam, Dr. Mark Kurt Nawani. Doc, good evening. Thank you for joining us on 3FM.
And good evening. Let me say greetings to the listeners of 3FM.
Okay. What information has the Health Committee received regarding the incident at the Afari Military Hospital earlier today? I'm sure you must have heard by now that the Minority Caucus on Health went there, but were not given the permission or were not allowed to tour the hospital facility.
Yes. History is playing back itself, and the law of karma has taken place. 2 to 3 years ago, we were also there as a minority. We pressed on the government to work on Afari Hospital, a 500 capacity bed hospital, which was supposed to ease the pressure on Confederated Teaching Hospital and probably reduce the no-bed syndrome and increase the capacity or the bed capacity of the hospitals in the Ashanti Region. We're not also allowed to also go there by the military. We had to stand aside and then give interview to the press. So what is happening now is not new. It happened during the time that we went, and it is happening today. Now, to the substantive case of the Afari hospital, what happened was this. Yes, the NDC got it about 75 to 80% completed before we left power in 2016. When the NPP government came to power, all they did was that all projects that was commenced by the NDC, the contractors were asked to stop work and a forensic audit carried out. Now, for 3 good years, this forensic audit was not carried out. The contractor's left side, the weed that we are seeing today, was there. It started about 5-6 years ago, and they now called back the contractors. Whatever they did was just cosmetic, trying to please people before elections, trying to commission uncompleted projects before elections. And on the dawn of leaving office, they went and commissioned Sewa Hospital. That is 2 days or so, when nobody was interested in whatever they were doing. And practically everybody was waiting for the NDC to come to power. They went and said they had handed over Sewa Hospital. And today we see the Sewa Hospital, which they claim was handed over, not operationalized.
Right. So clearly politics was at play when this particular hospital was being discussed. But briefly, because of time, if you can just help me, would the committee visit there as a committee to assess what was the next major line of action? Because people need this health facility to be operational.
Yes. We agree very well that, yes, we need to work on this abandoned health facilities. Indeed, the president has said that we are going to work between 20 to 30 of such facilities. My Minister of Health has said that we are going to at least pick 10 of them and seriously work on them. The mode of funding is from within, in other words, domestic resources that we are going to use to fund it. The government is not going for external loans now because we inherited an economy that was in intensive care, that was sick. And we needed to fix the economy before we look for resources to continue with the hospitals.
Okay. Thank you, Doc. We'll definitely be engaging you some more in the coming days. Thank you for speaking to us.
Thank you, too.
And that is Dr. Mark Kurt Nawani, who is the chairman of Parliament's Health Committee and member of Parliament for Nabadam. This is 3FM 92.7. You're listening to Hot Edition. Time now for business.
Hello there, good evening and welcome to the business segment here on News 360. I am Michael Obodu. Now, the Executive Director at the Center for Environmental Management and Sustainable Energy, SEMSE, Benjamin Asiedu, has strongly backed government's directive to prioritize supplying Ghana's crude oil directly to local refineries. Speaking on the strategic macroeconomic benefits of the policy, Asiedu stated that the decision will serve as a powerful catalyst for stabilizing the broader economy. He explained that local refining will add substantial value to the country's petroleum products, which in turn will significantly reinforce the stability of the city.
It is going to improve the local economy because there's going to be an industrial growth, other backward linkages with respect to getting other employees to be able to perform certain responsibilities and roles to ensure the sustainability in terms of processing petroleum products locally. Will also grow, and that is job creation or employment creation for most of our teeming youth. I also believe that such a decision will stabilize the economy in terms of adding value to most of these products and ensuring that this currency also stabilizes. And if the currency stabilizes, inflation caused by the volatile nature of the currency may also stabilize. Local refining improves our economy and ensure local industrialization is also improved. But the most important thing is the energy security because the petroleum market is quite volatile. The logistics and supply chain of it is also quite volatile based on geopolitical price and tensions. When you get your upstream integrated into your downstream in such a way that government has decided to allocate our liftings to local refineries to refine, it means that the cost of logistics or supply chain is likely going to be stable for some time. And also the price of the product on the international market and its associated cost may not impact our downstream that much.
You heard the Executive Director of the Center for Environmental Management and Sustainable Energy, SEMSE, Benjamin Asiedu. Meanwhile, Ghana's Finance Minister Dr. Kasiel Atufor has revealed that the government now expects to conclude 2026 with approximately $1.5 billion in total petroleum revenue, a massive jump from the initial $985 million projected in the annual budget.
Speaking in an interview with Bloomberg in London, the Finance Minister, Dr. Kasiel Atufor, attributed the revised forecast to skyrocketing international crude oil prices triggered by ongoing geopolitical tensions in the Middle East. The initial budget projection was pegged to a conservative benchmark price of $76.22 per barrel. This unexpected revenue windfall is also driving significant optimism for the broader economy. The anticipated windfall will be carefully managed to maintain fiscal discipline, ensuring that key infrastructure projects are funded while safely allocating resources to the Ghana Petroleum Funds for future generations. Furthermore, market analysts anticipate that this substantial injection of foreign currency could significantly ease pressure on the local currency, providing a timely cushion for the broader economy against global inflationary shocks.
And that was a 3 Business News Desk report. Now, the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, says it is taking steps to regulate the provision of investment advice, particularly on social media, warning that such services should only be offered by licensed professionals. The regulator says the growing trend of content creators providing investment guidance online poses potential risks to the public, especially where advice is given without the requisite expertise or regulatory approval. Speaking to the media, the Deputy Deputy Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Mensa Thompson, said only individuals and entities licensed by the Commission are authorized to offer investment advice. He urged unlicensed persons to refrain from presenting themselves as investment advisors, stressing that the move is aimed at protecting investors and safeguarding the integrity of Ghana's capital market.
It's something that we are discussing to see how we deal with it, because we acknowledge that these people are helping bring publicity and attention to the capital market. They are helping educate the public. But there's a thin line between what they are doing and the license activity, which is investment advisory, which requires that you have a license from the SEC before you can do that. And so we're trying to think of how to come up with a set of rules that will define the clear lines between advocacy and investment advisory. Then we'll see what sort of framework we'll put in place so that people who genuinely want to engage.
And that was the Deputy Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, Mensa Thompson, ending today's edition of the business segment here on Hot Edition. For more stories, check out our website, it's 3news.com/business. I am Michael Obodu. Up next is sports, and Billy Shen is on standby with the details. Stay tuned.
Hello, good evening and welcome to Sports here on the 3FM Hot Edition. My name is Bill Lishan. Now, Otuado, who is a former Black Stars coach who was named in an 11-member FIFA technical study group ahead of the 2026 World Cup, has outlined his expectations to the world ahead of the Mundial, which will be hosted in 3 countries. Those are USA, Mexico and Canada. Otuado was relieved of his duties as Black Stars coach after a back-to-back defeats to Austria and Germany. This is what he said ahead of the World Cup.
I think it's really interesting to see if there are some patterns from different continents.
Right, of course, Otuado, of course, is expecting a lot from the coaches and some teams ahead of the 2026 World Cup. Remember that the World Cup will begin tomorrow. On Thursday, we have a lot coming in store for you, including the opening game, which starts at 7 p.m. My name is Bilisha, and this is all for the Hot Edition here on 3FM 92.7. We'll be back same time tomorrow with a lot more here.
Thank you very much for listening to Hot Edition. It was live from our studio here at Adesawe Kanda in Accra. My name is Martin Asiedu-Dartey. If you go to our website, 3news.com, you have many more stories there, and then also keep the interaction going on our various social media platforms, and we'll be happy to reshare them or engage with you over there. Have a good evening. Bye for now.